Hey folks, welcome to the Living in Wilson County channel, where we talk about all things Wilson County, whether it be the exciting things that there are to do here, the lakes and the parks, the restaurants to go eat at. We're going to talk about the schools, all that fun stuff, except for today. And today we're going to talk about taxes. You know, it doesn't sound like something that's fun to talk about. I don't like talking about it. But it's probably the number one question that I get asked with people who are moving into this area. What are my taxes going to be? What about the income tax? What about this? What about that? We're going to cover all of those today. We're going to cover the good, the bad, and we're going to cover the ugly. So hang in there. We're going to get on it right now. Hello, are you still here? Oh, okay. I thought I had lost you there for a minute when I said the T word, taxes. Most people's eyes glaze over, or they go into the other room, or they just don't want to hear anything about it. And I understand that. I'm kind of the same way. But as I said before, one of the number one questions that I get with people moving into the area is what are the tax implications of living in Wilson County? And we're going to talk about those today. First off, my name is Reed Working. I'm a real estate agent right here in Wilson County in Lebanon, Tennessee, and I just love living here. It's the greatest place in the world to live. If I can help you in any way, if you're thinking about moving here or you have any kind of a question about real estate, I'd be more than happy to answer them for you. But for our tax video today, we're going to talk about all the taxes there are. We're going to start out with the income tax. We're going to talk about sales taxes and property taxes, other miscellaneous taxes, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So let's get started right off with the income tax. We don't have an income tax here in Tennessee. Tennessee is one of the few states in the country that doesn't have an income tax. And why don't we have an income tax? Well, because it's in our Constitution. There are two things in the Tennessee Constitution that have put Tennessee where we are today as a very progressive and as a great state to live in. And one of them is that the Tennessee Constitution says we cannot have a state income tax. We cannot have a personal income tax. It also says that we must have a balanced budget, so that the governor and the legislature must work together to provide a balanced budget. Tennessee is a fairly conservative state, and we're a fairly physically conservative state as well. So those are all good things about moving to Tennessee and about living here. Now, let's go on to the next one, which is sales tax. A lot of folks will say, that's kind of a high sales tax. We were 9.75%. And then I look at some of the other states around Kentucky and Alabama and all these others, and maybe we are a little more than them, but when you check some of the states up in New York, up at north, we're really not that bad. And when you consider the fact that we don't have a state income tax, well, our sales tax is actually pretty nice. Now, the breakdown for that is 7% and 2.75%. 7% of the sales tax goes to the state, and that's where 60% of their revenue comes from, is from the sales tax. Now, as far as the 2.75% is concerned, that's called a local option tax. Each of the counties in Tennessee can pass one of those, and they can adjust that. Ours is at 2.75%, and half of that money has to be spent on schools. So that's a good outcome for that money. Now, the state sales tax applies to all goods and services that you purchase. There are a few exceptions. One are groceries. If you go to the grocery store and buy your groceries, the state part of that drops down to 4%. The local option stays the same, so your total tax bill at the grocery store is going to be 6.75%. Now, we also have a sales tax holiday every year. Last year we actually had two of them, but typically it's just held once a year. It's usually in July or in August, just before schools go back in session. That way kids can get clothes. Actually, anybody can buy clothes that are tax-free. You can buy all the school supplies that you want. Computers have no tax on them during that period of time. So that's a good benefit. Tennessee generally runs a surplus in their budget. So we have a few of these perks that they throw in to help folks out. Another kind of a unique exemption for the sales tax is on gun safes. And that in itself tells you a little bit about Tennessee. We want to be safe. We want everybody to be safe with their guns. So if you buy a gun safe, no matter what size it happens to be, whether it's a small personal one or maybe a large one, you can buy those tax-free here in Tennessee. Okay, now we've covered income tax, we've covered the sales tax, and now the big kahuna here is property tax. And when you talk to local folks, property tax is really important to them. It really is a hot button issue, as you can well imagine. So property taxes here in Wilson County are pretty good. We have 5 different tax areas. We have the county as a whole, and then we have the 3 major cities, Lebanon, Watertown, and Mount Juliet. They all have city taxes depending on where you live in that area. And then there's one other one. It's called the Lebanon Special School District. And it's a tax for the special schools that Lebanon supports. Back in the early 1900s, the Lebanon Special School District was developed for extra schools inside the city, and it still goes on. And this tax is to help pay for those. They cover the elementary schools and the middle schools inside the city. When kids get old enough to go to high school, they go to the county high school. But those are the 5 areas that you have for property taxing districts, and you might have to pay all 3 of those. If you live in a certain area of Lebanon, you'll have to pay the county, the city, and the special school district. Some areas you may only pay the county and the city. If you're like me and you live out just in the country area, even though I have a Lebanon address, I don't actually live in the city limits. I only pay the county property tax. So that's good. Now, I do want to give you a little information on, I don't want to get too particular and too detailed because it gets kind of hard to follow, but I want to tell you how the taxes are figured, because it's, if you don't know, it's a good thing to know. Every 5 years, the county goes through a reassessment. That's a state mandated thing. All properties in Tennessee go through a 5-year reassessment. And the county property assessor places a value on your property. Well, there's also, depending on what type property is, residential property, for example, is taxed at 25% of the value of the property. And that's called the assessment. You've got the property appraisal, and then you've got the property assessment, and that's 25% of the appraisal. For example, if you have a $100,000 piece of property, the assessment on that is 25%. So the tax rate only applies to the assessment, not to the appraisal. Here in Wilson County, the property tax rate is about $1.90 per 100 of assessed value. So if you take that 25% assessment, $25,000, and you divide that by 100 and then multiply that times $1.90, that'll tell you how much your taxes are. And of course, each one of the individual taxing areas, the city taxes or the special school district, have their own tax rate. $1.90 here in the county. I think it's probably $2 in the Mount Juliet city. I think that special school district is like 65 cents or something like that. So that is exactly how you figure your tax rates. Now, there is a great website, and I'm going to put a link to it down in the comments, and it will allow you to search and look for any property in the whole state of Tennessee. You can search by owner's names, you can search by address, you can look up your own, you can look up your neighbors, or you can maybe look up the property that you're thinking about buying, and it'll tell you what the taxes have been over the last number of years. It'll tell you what the appraisal is. It'll tell you a little bit about the property. So it's a great website. It has a great map on it. If you want to search by that, you can just click on the different properties. It'll tell you who owns them and what the prices are. It's really a great site, and I'll show you how to get into that when we get down on the comments. Now, one of the questions that I get a lot of times is, what happens when I purchase a home? Is that value or whatever I paid for that property, is that going to get reflected in my assessment? Well, it's not at this particular point in time. It may 5 years from now when the reappraisal is done, but it's not going to do that when you buy the property. Most of the time, the assessor of property's appraisal is going to be less than what the actual market value of the property is. So if you paid, say, $50,000 more than the market or than the appraisals assessment, you're not going to be paying $50,000 more on taxes next year. You'll have to wait until the next reappraisal occurs. That's just how they do that. That's a state law. It's done every 5 years. It's not done as properties are bought and as properties are sold. So that's been a great question. Now, in addition to the standard property tax, there are a couple of other taxes that I want to tell you about that are a little, well, I won't say they're hidden because that doesn't sound really good, but there are taxes that you don't see very much, but that you end up paying. One is the adequate facilities tax, and that's a tax that the county has put on new construction properties. Owners and buyers don't pay that directly, but the builder has already paid that, so you can be guaranteed that he has added that on to the price of the property. But here in Wilson County, the facilities tax is $5,000. Now, the money for that tax goes toward infrastructure to help support the new construction. For example, roadways or police or fire protection, all that sort of stuff. So it's an adequate facilities tax, and here it's about $5,000. The other tax is a little unique, and it's called Greenbelt. And what it does is it offers a discount to farmers and large parcels of property. You have to have at least 15 acres to go on the Greenbelt. It doesn't have to be 100% dedicated to farming. For example, you could have a 15-acre property and have your home on that property, and it would still be qualified under the Greenbelt. What they normally, and it's a lower tax rate. To qualify for it, you have to do some type of farming activity, whether it be growing cattle or whether it's growing hay or something like that. They even have a section dedicated to just letting the terrain grow wild. I mean, that is another classification of the Greenbelt. So if you're buying a property that is 15 acres or larger, you might want to check into that. There's a good chance that the property has already been listed under the Greenbelt. So keep that in mind as you're shopping for a property or as you're looking at your taxes. Switching gears a little bit now, we've talked about the income tax, we've talked about the sales tax and the property tax. Now we're going to talk a little bit about some other taxes that you're going to run into when you're here. One of those is the wheel tax, and that's getting the tags and registration for your vehicle. Here in Wilson County, the total price is about $54. $25 is a local part of that, and then $29 is the state part of that. There's no inspections required, no emissions inspections. We just got rid of those a few months ago. There's no other inspections required. There's no personal property tax. I know some states charge you based on the value of the car for your tags, and here it doesn't matter whether you've got an expensive car or just a beater. Everybody pays the same amount as far as their license tags are concerned. That's the wheel tax. So that pretty much covers all the taxes that you're going to be responsible for here in Wilson County. Now, there is one part that I call the ugly part. Fortunately, it's not here in Wilson County, but it's in Davidson County, and it has impacted us some here in Wilson County. About a year or so ago, Davidson County, with their financial issues that they had over there, they decided they were going to increase the property tax rate 34%. Can you imagine that? A 34% increase in just one time. Wow. Now, how that's impacted Wilson County is that a lot of those folks from Davidson County are moving this way. So that is what I call the ugly part of taxes. Thankfully, it doesn't impact us to too much of an extent here in Wilson County. That about wraps us up. If I can help you in any way, be sure and give me a call. You can send me an email or a text. Check me out on Facebook. I'd love to help you in any way I can. If you like the video, give us a thumbs up. If you'd like to subscribe to our channel, you can just click below and be sure and click on the bell so that you'll be notified when new videos are available. Hey, Wilson County is the greatest place in the world to live. I'd love to help you find a place here. Give me a call if I can help you in any way. See you next time.